Alright, so we're going to be doing Unit 6, Skill 7, how do we divide polynomials with binomials. Alright then, so how do we divide, basic question, 315 by 7. So, obviously 7 does not divide 3 nicely, so we're now looking at 31. So how many times does 7 go into 31 is the question we ask ourselves. So we're thinking 7 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What's closest to 31 that doesn't go over that, so we can subtract. That's the goal. So 7 times 4 is 28. So we're going to put our 4 here. We're going to put our 28 here. And we're going to subtract. 31 minus 28 is going to give us 3. We bring down the 5. And then we ask ourselves, okay, how many times does 7 go into 35? 7 times 5 is 35. We can now subtract the remainder 0, and we've now divided 315 by 7. Okay, another question. Oops, that didn't work out so well. Okay, we're divide 458 by 11. I apologize, it looks so funky there. I think it looks better on your actual paper, but for some reason here it didn't copy so well. So, how many times does 11 go into 4? Well, it doesn't, so we're going to skip that, and we're going to say how many times does 11 go into 45. So we multiply 11 by 4, and we get 44. We subtract, and we get 1. Bring down the 8. And we ask ourselves, how many times does 11 go into 18? Well, it doesn't go in nicely, and it doesn't always have to, and that's okay. Don't cry about it. So 11 times 1 is 11. Subtract, we get 7, and we're good to go. So it's 41, the remainder of 7 over 11. And that's how we kind of write it, positive 7 over 11. So 41, remainder 7 over 11, and that's it. Well, that's all nice, fun and games until, oops, let's see if I just undo that, until we get to a problem like example 2, where we actually have to divide. So we have f of x is equal to that whole nastiness right there, x to the 4th, yep, tons of fun, and we have to divide all of that by x plus 9. So the idea is the same. We're just going to do long division, and it takes quite a bit of time. So I'm going to pause this and copy the long division question real quick. There we go, I've copied it. All right, so we're asking ourselves, does x plus 9 go into the x to the 4th? And it does, right? We can multiply the x. So the idea here is the same as before, all right? Before we were saying, does 7 multiply to something that we can subtract from 31? So we are going to do the same multiplication piece again. We're going to say, how can I make x become an x to the 4th? Well, that's pretty simple. I'm going to multiply by x to the 3rd. So I'm going to multiply by x to the 3rd. I don't know if you can hear the music in the background, but man, it's loud next door in Mr. Klein's room. If you can, enjoy. All right, so we're going to multiply x plus 9 times x to the 3rd, because that will give us an x to the 4th. And remember, the goal afterward is to subtract. So I'm going to multiply by x to the 3rd. I get x to the 4th. And then when I multiply the x to the 3rd by the 9, I get 9x to the 3rd. And it's positive 9x to the 3rd. And now we're going to subtract. So, the idea here is subtraction. It's pretty straightforward, but people really mess this up a lot. Maybe not so much in this part of the question, but in the next part of the question, I do see people screw it up a lot. So I teach people, don't subtract, add the opposite. Because no one messes up addition, but everybody messes up subtraction, it seems. Just years of experience talking here. Yes, that makes me old. I'm okay with that. So scribble that out, change all the signs. So if it was positive, it becomes negative. If it was negative, it becomes positive. And now we're just adding. So I have an x to the 4th and a negative x to the 4th. That cancels. I have a 6 and a negative 9. 6 and negative 9 is going to work out to be negative 3x. Don't forget the fact that it's still cubed. All right, and now I have to carry down my minus 22x. Squared, sorry. Okay, so I'm going to repeat that process about 1,000,000 times. And here we go. So now I have to make the x become the negative 3x to the 3rd. So to do that, I actually have to multiply by a negative 3x squared. So minus 3x squared. So when I multiply the 3x squared by that, I get negative 3x to the 3rd. Come on, today. And now I have to multiply the negative 3x squared again by the 9. Multiplying both parts, that gives me negative 27x squared. Again, it's subtraction, and this is the problem where people just screw up royally, so this is why I teach what I teach, or the way I teach it. So I don't subtract, I add the opposite. And people, for some reason, can add these much better. So the negative 3x and the positive 3x squared, cancel, they're gone. That was pretty easy, straightforward, and we wanted that to happen. The negative 22x squared and the positive 27x squared, on the other hand, when we add them, make a 5x squared. Come on. So we now have 5x squared. Did not want that color. We're going to bring down the 49. It was plus 49x. And we're going to do this again. Gets pretty boring. So it's the same process repeated over and over again. So x to become 5x squared. So again, I'm asking myself, what can I multiply x by to make it become 5x squared? Well, x times 5x works pretty well. And it's a positive 5x, which is important that you understand that, notice that. So we write plus 5x. So I have a 5x squared when I multiply, and now I have to multiply the 5x by the 9. Both positive, so it's plus 45x. So now we need to subtract. People don't like to do subtraction, although in this particular question, subtraction is pretty easy. And if you can look at it and get it, I'm okay with that. So in this problem, part of it, I'm actually not going to change the signs, I'm just going to subtract. But I'm subtracting the whole thing. So 5x squared minus the 5x squared cancels. 49 minus 45 is 4. Last step, bring down the 36. Thank goodness, we're almost done. It was a plus 36. There we have it. Okay, so 4x plus 36. How can I make the x become a 4x? Well, I have to multiply by 4. So it's a positive 4 I'm multiplying by, so I'll write plus 4 here. I multiply by 4 and I get a 4x. When I multiply the 9 times the 4, that will give me 36 as well. And it's a positive 36. And you can see that when I subtract the whole thing, I do end up with 0. So the answer to this question, when we have to divide that x to the 4th by x plus 9, is x to the 3rd minus 3x squared plus 5x plus 4, and we're good to go. So, is x plus 9 a factor of it? Well, if it's a factor, then, it works out such that we have a remainder of 0. So that answer is not going to show up, apparently. Let's try it again. Yes, it is. The remainder is 0. It divided it nicely. If so, then the root will be, well, if I have x plus 9 equals 0, and it's a factor, I subtract the 9 over, I get x equals negative 9. Which means, if I take and plug that negative 9 in for x, right, I am going to get 0, which is kind of nice. All right, so that implies that f of negative 9 is equal to 0. Hence, it's a root, okay? The ordered pair negative 9 comma 0. All right, let's move on and do another question. I'm going to take a second right now to copy the question over, write it as long division. You should do the same. So now we need to divide. So the first thing we ask ourselves is, how can I make that 7a become a 14a to the 3rd? That's a horrible 3, but it is a 3, or at least it's supposed to be. So 14a cubed. So obviously we're going to multiply by 2, and we have to use an a squared. So 7a times the 2a squared is going to give me the 14a cubed, which is what I'm looking for. So again, 2a squared. So now I have my 14a cubed. And then I have to multiply my negative 9 times the 2a squared, which is going to give me negative 18a squared. Again, remember, I don't like subtraction, so technically I'm subtracting this whole big thing. If you want to put parentheses around it, you totally can. It's not a problem, not a bad idea too, so you understand that. So I'm going to do plus, make that a negative, make that a positive, and adding is pretty easy. The 14a cubed cancel. We're left with a positive 3 and an 18, which makes 21a squared. Bring down the minus 69a. And now we have to figure out what multiplies to the 21a squared. When I multiply 7a, obviously I'm going to multiply by 3a, a positive 3a. We want it to be exactly the same. So multiply by that positive 3a, so we write plus 3a here. So that gives me 21a squared. Now I need to multiply the 3a times the negative 9, which gives me negative 27a. Now we're going to subtract. Again, we don't really like subtraction, so I'm not really going to subtract. I'm going to add the opposite. So I'm going to plus a negative and make that a positive. And then we won't make simple mistakes that people make all the time, which is just not so much fun, but it's part of life, right? So the 21a squared and the 21a squared, that's positive negative cancel. That's good to go. A negative 69 and a positive 27 is going to make negative 42. Okay, and we'll bring down the plus 54. Hopefully this will work out and we're in good shape. So now I have to multiply the 7a and something to make negative 42a. Well, that's going to be multiplied by 6, but it's got to be a negative 42, so it's going to be negative 6. So minus 6. So we get negative 42a, and then we have to multiply the negative 6 by the negative 9, which gives me a positive 54, which is fantastic. Alright, again, I don't really like subtraction. You don't have to do this here. It's not a bad idea to, though. Can't hurt, right? Change the signs, and you can see that now we have a positive and negative of each, so it makes 0. That is our remainder. So our answer is 2a squared plus 3a minus 6 when we divide. And we're good to go. So is 7n minus 9 a factor? The answer is yes. Right, simply because the remainder was zippity 0. If so, what will the root be? Well, if we have 7n minus 9 equals 0 because it's a factor, we add over 9 and divide by 7, and we get 9 over 7. Alright, question number 4. So this problem is a little bit weird. You're going to notice right off the bat that it does not have an m to the third or an m. And when that happens in a question, you are going to want to add that in there to the problem, just like I'm about to do. So I'm not going to copy this one off to the side, or pause it and copy it, and have you take a look at what I'm doing. So I'm going to write m to the fourth, and then I'm going to have a plus 0m cubed. And that's going to act as a placeholder. And then I'm going to have a plus 0m, and then minus 6. Got to extend this line here. Alright, so now that we have our placeholders in place, we can go ahead and do the long division. It doesn't change the problem any, it just makes it a little bit easier for us to see kind of what's going on. So here we go. I need to multiply to make an m to the fourth. So I'm going to multiply this m right here, come on, by m to the third, and that will give me my m to the fourth. So we have m to the third, come on, and that is going to give us our m to the fourth, and it's going to give us a plus 8m to the third. Alright, and then we are supposed to subtract, but I don't like that subtraction, so I'm going to change all my signs, and then add, because we don't mess up addition. Subtraction, we mess up. So we end up getting a negative 8m to the third, bring down the negative 64m squared. Okay, and now I need to multiply to make the negative 8m to the third, so I'm going to multiply by a negative 8. M squared, and that will give me my negative 8m to the third. That also gives me a negative 64m squared below. And again, I don't like to subtract, so I add the opposite, which cancels everything out. When everything cancels here, we end up with 0. And the 0m we don't need to bring down, we just bring down a negative 6. Okay, so we write the negative 6 down there, and that is our remainder. There's no way we can divide that, so we're left with m to the third minus 8m squared. Okay, so to write out our answer, we would simply write the answer to this question is m, come on, to the third minus 8m squared minus 6 over m plus 8. Man, this thing's been finicky. All right, so to answer the questions down here, is m plus 8 a factor? No. It's only a factor if the remainder is 0. So example 5 here is going to be you can get to try this one on your own. I'm going to set it up for you, and we're going to talk about pausing it. Hopefully you'll pause it and get yourself a practice problem in, because it is very easy to watch someone just do something over and over and over again, especially when it's a process like this. Think that you have it. Apparently I can't copy numbers. Think that you have it, only to realize you really don't know what you're doing. So what we're going to do is we're going to pause the video in just a second. You're going to go through, do the best that you can, and then I'll post my answer, and we'll see from there. Remember, the first step to starting this is taking and figuring out how can 3k multiplied become 24k to the third. And remember, you're going to write whatever that number is here that you're going to multiply by right there. So 3k times what? It's going to give you 24k to the third, and start doing your subtraction. Get going. All right, I'm going to pause the video now, so should you. Okay, so here we have the 8 multiplied by 3 to get 24. K squared gives us, times k, gives us k cubed. So we have the 24k cubed. 8 times the 9 gives us 72, and then the k squared we attach. We need to subtract. So 24 minus 24 is gone. 57 minus 72. Again, would be negative 15. I am not showing the signs change. That way you can see what it should have been when you multiplied in. So I have not changed the signs on any of these. So I wouldn't recommend that, but it is a way you can solve it. It does work. Some people do it that way. So people usually do 57 minus 72 and get negative 15 correct, but here's where they mess up. To get the negative 15k squared, we multiply by negative 5. That gives us negative 15k squared. Negative 5k times the 9 gives us negative 45. And here's where people mess up the subtraction. Negative 75 minus negative 45. People just add them, negative 75 and negative 45, and try and tell me it's a negative 120. It's not. It doesn't work that way. It's negative plus, right? 45, negative 75 plus 45, which is negative 30k. And the next part is the part where people mess up as well. So we have negative 30k minus 85. We have to multiply 3 times something. That times something is negative 10. That gives us negative 30k. So then the negative 10 times the 9 is going to give us minus 90. Again, the 30k's cancel. Negative 85 minus negative 90 becomes plus, which means we have a positive 5 left over. And our final answer should be 8k squared minus 5k minus 10 plus 5 over 3k plus 9. And that's that. That's all there is to it. That is your answer. So to answer the final question, is 3k plus 9 a factor? It is a big old no. Okay? So there's no root there. It does not cross that spot. Don't forget to write your summary, bring it up and show us. Thank you.